Hey there, we are so thankful that you have made the choice to watch one of ACC's messages online. You know, as you are watching and diving into the truths that are being shared, we challenge you. You're sitting at your phone or your computer, hop on social media and be sure to use the hashtag YouBelongAtACC as God is teaching you different things during this message. But you know, we say you belong at ACC and we truly mean that, which means we would love to have you join us during one of our Sunday services at 8:30, 10 a.m. or 11:30 a.m. here at 710 Aquahart Road. So we would love to have you jump into this message, and we're believing God is going to do some awesome things in your life today.
God has done so much in my life through transforming the way that I think about my body and about wellness. This is a topic that I could probably talk about. I could talk your ear off about. The first thing that he's taught me is that our bodies are not our own. The Bible teaches us that our bodies were bought with a price. They were bought with a very, very steep price. It was the blood of Christ. And for that reason, Christ owns our bodies. The main function of our bodies is to glorify and honor God through them. You might think that some good ways of doing that is eating the right things, getting plenty of rest, drinking lots of water, all of those things that give you energy so that you can do the Lord's work, all the things that we know that we're supposed to do. But we don't really want to do them, so we don't always do them. And these are great things, and I absolutely think that people should do them. But they shouldn't be ultimate things. You shouldn't take these good things that God has given us, these good rules of healthy living, and take them to be the be-all, end-all. Glorifying God with your body will sometimes mean that you skip your workout to go help your friend that just called you and they need you right now. They need you to be with them, praying with them. So you skip the workout. These are things that I've experienced in my life and I've had to do. And that was a tough choice for me because I'm a workout junkie, but it was what God wanted. The other choice might be you go to that old lady's house who is lonely at church and you eat the fried Spam and canned vegetables that she feeds you. And you do it with a smile on your face because that's what she gave you, and it will hurt her feelings if you don't. Or you give up your sleep and you go and you help at insomnia and you stay up all night with crazy teenagers just so you could show them how much you love them and about how much God loves them. The other thing that God has taught me is to never ever compare yourself with anyone else. One of the beautiful things about God is that he's so creative. He's made billions of people, all with different bodies, with different strengths, and with different abilities. We're all unique. Don't ever compare yourself and what you can achieve with what other people are doing. But when you do what the Bible tells us to do, and you work heartily with everything that you have as unto God and not as unto man, not trying to please men, then you're going to be happy. You do the best that you can. You achieve the best that you can, all remembering that the overarching thing of everything that you do in life is to bring honor and glory to God.
Well, good morning. Oh man, you guys are excited. I'm excited. It's going to be a great day. If you guys have not been a part of this Transform series, can I just encourage you, if this is your first time with us, first of all, thank you for being here. We're excited you're here. But we want to encourage you to go back. This has been an incredible way to start off 2020. I think we've had 3 really dynamic messages back to back, talking about transforming our faith, our thinking, talking about transforming our relationships. The last 3 weeks have been so good for my soul, and I want to encourage you to go back and to watch those. I am kind of the hinge, if you will, of the series. We're doing 7 weeks, so I am the 4th one. There are 3 more after me. But this week, I am tasked with the very easy topic of talking about transforming our bodies. Now, before everybody gets up and walks out, please just give me grace and the benefit of the doubt for a minute, and don't just walk out on me, all right? I want to be very honest with you guys. Well, before I do that, let me just say this, that we've kind of been working through this passage over the course of this series in 2 Corinthians 3, And I want to share it with you kind of to understand our heart behind the series. 2 Corinthians says this, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. And we all, who with unveiled faces contemplate the Lord's glory, check this out, are being transformed into his image with ever-increasing glory, which comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. So I'm going to be very honest and upfront with you about what's going to happen today. I don't like surprises, so I don't give them to people, all right? Here's what's going to happen. I'm going to teach here in just a minute. I'm going to share a little bit of my story and how God is redeeming kind of my health, if you will. And then I'm going to teach a little bit about a thing I think is very important to understand. We're going to talk about what God thinks about our bodies, not what the magazine said about it, not what that YouTube video said about it, not what your parents said about it, not what your friends tell you about it, but what God says about your bodies. And then I'm going to bring up two of my newfound friends, and we're going to talk for a little bit about what healthy living actually looks like. And hopefully you're able to walk out today with some really tangible, applicable next steps in your life. And I'm going to stay at this level the entire time because I understand that talking about your body is not fun. And so I'm going to act like it's the best thing that we have done all week, all right? So that is my goal. Let me tell you a little bit about my story and how God has kind of worked me through this particular process. When about 5 years ago, I was what I would consider to be kind of in the best shape of my life. I had always been an athlete. From the time I was 5, my parents put me in t-ball, and I played baseball, and I wrestled, and I played football all the way through high school and even into college. And I loved sports. I always have been an athlete. But really at the age of 28, I felt like I was hitting my stride. I'd set a personal goal for myself to run in an Ironman by the time I was 35. Now, for those of you who don't know what an Ironman is, it's a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.24-mile run. It is a triathlon of triathlons. It is it's really easy to do. A lot of people do it. So I just figured, you know what, I'm bored. Why not go run a triathlon? No, it was. For me, it was going to be, and it still is a goal for me, to be able to do. Not by 35, because that's in 2 years, and I won't be ready. So we've pushed it to 40. It's fine. I've heard you only get better with age, right? So 5 years ago, I was in a place where I was beginning to train really for my first try. And so what I was triathlon. I'll make sure I use correct language. And so I was running like 30 miles a week. I was swimming. I was biking. I mean, I felt incredible. And I was at my office one day. I was working at a church in South Carolina, and I went to go get one of those wall calendars, those paper wall calendars, off the ground, and I couldn't stand back up. I was stuck right here. And I had this hard decision to make. What next? I could call an ambulance, right, and get them to come help me. I could stay like this the rest of my life. That could be fun. But I decided to do what I feel like a man would do, which is force my way back up through the pain. Do you know what I'm saying? Like to the point where I could just kind of do this. And then I walked out of the office. I never forgot, I passed our secretary, Amy. She was like, "Are you all right?" I'm like, "I'm good. I won't be back today." And I waddled down to my car, and I kind of plopped in, and I drove to the urgent care. So about 12 to 18 months later, I was sitting, I had gone to doctors, I had gone to chiropractors, I had taken muscle relaxers. They did everything they could to get my back to stop spasming and freaking out to the point where I couldn't bend over. And finally, we found relief. And I was excited. And then, hurt my back again. And I tell you, there's nothing that will take the wind out of your sails more than the feeling of constant defeat. And so I began instead to change my mantra from "I'm running an Ironman." I made you guys some shirts today, not for you, but on the screen. This became my mantra. I will eat Chick-fil-A here or there. I will eat Chick-fil-A everywhere. All right, that was one shirt that I would. Here's another one. I'm either eating Chick-fil-A, about to eat Chick-fil-A, or thinking about Chick-fil-A. That became a mantra for me. Or my favorite one, I still focused on fitness. I said, I'm into fitness. Fitting Chick-fil-A in my mouth. You know what I'm talking about. That became my These are real shirts you can buy on Amazon. Here's the thing. I became kind of this emotional eater, if you will, because I didn't know really how to deal with the fact that I had been kind of beaten down. And even since I've been here in Maryland, I've hurt my back 3 times. Still haven't figured quite how to not break myself. And that is frustrating. And here's what I learned. I thought, if I can't run, if I can't go to the gym, if I can't go do those things, be athletic, be that person, then I can't be healthy. And instead, what I had to learn was maybe eating at Chick-fil-A 4 meals a day isn't the way to be healthy. We're going to talk about that. So here's what I know. I know that this subject is sensitive. I know that it's difficult to talk about. I know that it's not fun. But here's what I also know. That at the end of the day, we're not going to do a rah-rah, give away gym memberships and run out the door and tell everybody to go work out 7 days a week or they're not honoring God. That's not the message today. The message today is not starve yourself, be skinny, or you're not honoring God. It's not the message today. The message today is that we want to help understand what God says about our body. Because God talks about it, we need to talk about it. So if you have a Bible, I'd love for you to turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. We're going to spend just a couple minutes talking about that, and then I'm going to bring up my friends to continue talking about what this looks like. 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Here's the big idea today. If you were to walk away with nothing else, walk away with this. That we should believe what God says about our body. We should believe what God says about our body. 1 Corinthians, Paul's writing here to the church at Corinth, and I want to share just a couple of insights that Paul shares out of this passage. And then I want to help us kind of move forward. Like, what does that look like for us? How do we do this well? How do we live our lives in such a way that honors God? So let's take a look. I'm going to read the whole passage. We're going to come back through and talk about a couple things that we can see out of that. So 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we'll start in verse 12. It says this, "You say, I am allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. You say food was made for the stomach and the stomach for food. And this is true, though someday God will do away with both of them. But you can't say that our bodies were made for sexual immorality. They were made for the Lord." And check this out. "And the Lord cares about our bodies." Highlight, underline, circle, square it off, whatever you need to do. The Lord cares about our bodies. "And God will raise us from the dead by his power, just as he raised our Lord from the dead. Don't you realize that your bodies are actually parts of Christ? Should a man take his body, which is a part of Christ, and join it to a prostitute? Never. And don't you realize that if a man joins himself to a prostitute, he becomes one body with her? For the scriptures say, the two are united into one. But the person who is joined to the Lord is one spirit with him. Run from sexual sin. No other sin so clearly affects the body as this one does. For sexual immorality is a sin against your own body. Don't you realize that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit who lives in you and was given to you by God? You do not belong to yourself, for God bought you with a high price, so you must honor God with your body." So I want us to walk through 3 quick ideas this morning of what this passage is telling us about our bodies. First and foremost, that our body is God's temple. Our body is God's temple. You see this in verse 15, right, when it says that we are part of Christ. Verse 17, that we've been joined to the Lord. Verse 19, of course, right there, your body is the temple. Now look, I've heard some say, if my body is the dwelling place of God, shouldn't I give him more room to live? Sorry. It's a slow fading joke. People, it takes a little bit of time to get that one. It's fine. Maybe. But here's what I know. That's not the point of what we're talking about. The point is that all the decisions that we make, the food that we eat, the substances we put into our bodies, the things that we drink, everything that we do, we are doing alongside of God. And God is with us. So every decision that we make, every choice that we make, every partner that we're with, all of those things, God is with us. And that's why Paul's saying it's important that we recognize that the Spirit is with us, that our bodies are actually the dwelling place of God's presence. You and I, our bodies, are the dwelling place of God's presence. So what we do, how we act, what we drink, what we eat, all reflects back on who God has created us to be. Secondly, I would say this, that our body is a tool. It's God's tool. Our body is God's tool. Now, what that means is this, that God has made you on purpose, as we're telling the students these last couple weeks, that God has made you on purpose and God has made you for a purpose. The way that you're designed, the height that you are, the weight that you are, like some of those things are all God's designed plan for you. And so we have to take care and maintain those bodies, because here's what I know. If I had a screwdriver and I left it sitting out all night long, it would rust. And the more that it rusts, the less effective it becomes. The less I care for it, the less useful it is. Same is true of our bodies. We have to take care of our bodies because they have been called for a purpose. That's why in Romans 12, Paul writes to the church in Rome that our bodies are intended to be living sacrifices to God, holy and acceptable to Him. That our bodies are intended to be used now by God. Who we are and what we do is intended to be used for the glory of Him. And I understand that tools have a purpose, right? A flathead screwdriver unscrews a flathead nail. It can't unscrew anything else really well. That's not what it's meant to do. But I also understand that a tool is not a toy. And that's our body. Our body is a tool, not a toy. Toys, you don't have consequences. You break a toy, you go buy a new one, it's totally fine. I guess you could do that with a tool as well, but it's a little bit more expensive. But here's the thing. Here's what I'm trying to get after. If we think of our bodies as a toy without consequences, rather than a tool with a purpose, then we abuse the gift that God has given us in our lives. Let me say that again. If we think of our bodies as a toy without consequences rather than a tool with a purpose, then we abuse the gift that God has given us in our lives. Look at verse 12. This is where Paul's getting this from. In verse 12, right, he starts off by saying this Corinthian statement. They say, I am allowed to do anything. And Paul says, yeah, but not everything is good. Yeah, I'm allowed to do anything though. Yeah, but not everything is beneficial. Freedom does not equal beneficial. Just because you are free to do anything doesn't mean that you should. And that's what Paul's getting after. The third thing I want to say is this. Not only is our body a temple for God, not only is our body a tool for God, but our body is God's treasure. Here's what I know about treasure. I've never hunted one before, but if I did, and somebody told me, if you go and hunt this treasure, there are billions of dollars to be had. However, you could lose your arm. Guess what? I'm going to learn to live with one arm. And that's the truth. If you have billions of dollars, maybe that wouldn't be your sacrifice, but it would be mine. Why? Because we tend to sacrifice a little bit more for those things that we love and adore. We tend to give up a little bit more for the treasure, things that we treasure, things that we hold close. I would give up a lot more for my children than I would for you. It's not because I don't love you, it's because I love my children more. They're my treasure. I hold them close. God, in the same way, views you and I as His treasure. How do I know this? Look at verse 20. For God bought you with a high price. What was that price? Jackie mentioned it earlier. It was a sacrifice. It was Jesus' life, death, and resurrection. Jesus coming to this earth was His purchase of our lives. And now, because of that sacrifice, we have the opportunity in our bodies to respond. And that response comes through honoring Him with our lives, right? You're bought at a price. So honor God with your body. Understand that we are not owners of our body. We are merely managers until Jesus comes back. And we need to shift our thinking to see ourselves as temples of God purchased by Christ. His sacrifice purchased our lives. And now we have the opportunity to respond in that. I want to take a few minutes as we kind of shift gears, if you will, to invite a couple of my friends to the stage. I want to introduce them as they walk up here. I have two friends with me today. One of them is a family doctor. She's a well-known friend of most of our staff. And the other one owns a gym here in Pasadena. And, I want to read their bios as they're walking up here. The first one here walking up is Dr. Amy Cowart. Dr. Cowart, her bio is this, that God used her neighbor and childhood friend with Down syndrome to call Dr. Cowart to the field of medicine at the age of 5 years old. From that point on, all she wanted to do was become a doctor. As a family physician, Dr. Cowart enjoys caring for the whole person and families, from infants to seniors. She recently celebrated her 10th anniversary with Maryland Primary Care Physicians. She's married, has 2 kids, and belongs to the USNA Chapel of Faith community. Everybody welcome for me, Dr. Amy Cowart.
Thanks.
To her left is my friend Melanie Lorena. Melanie was born and raised here in Maryland. She started playing sports when she was 7 and going to church when she was 12, and has been blessed with role models along the way who showed her what it looked like to live for the Lord and to seek Him. She went to Bridgewater College in Virginia, where she began to truly grasp what it means to follow Christ. She went on a 5-month mission trip to Fiji, where God brought healing to her heart, identity, and how she views Him. She returned back to Maryland and went to work at Transformation Gym alongside an ACCer named Jen Davis. This is where she gets to live out her passion of loving women, helping them to become more of the women that God has created them to be. She uses Transformations now as her ministry field. So please welcome Melanie Lorena as well. So with the time we have left, and I want to encourage you to lean in here. I think there's going to be something, there is something for every person sitting in the room. Whether right now you're more like me and you sit on the couch and watch football on Sundays, and that is your form of activeness, or you're training for a marathon, I think along the way there's going to be a really good point of application for all of us. I think there's going to be some eye-opening moments. There were when I sat down with both of you. I think it's going to be really great. So here's where I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth between them, asking some questions, allowing them to answer, and we're going to keep going that way. All right, so Dr. Cowart, let's start with you. When we sat at Starbucks, you kind of blew my mind a little bit as I had some questions laid out, and you were like, no, that's the wrong way to ask the question. And I was like, I'm the question asker. No, I didn't say that. Of course, you should all do with your doctor. You just listen to what she says and do it. But here's the thing. I was originally going to ask the question, what are ways that we can take steps forward in healthy living? And Dr. Cowart, you so eloquently and wisely said, it's not normally that we don't know what to do, it's that we don't know what's in our way. Mm-hmm. So the question we had to ask, the first one you're going to answer this morning, is what are the barriers to starting that active lifestyle, that healthy living that we're talking about?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. So when I have a patient in my office, most people will say, Dr. Cowart, I know what I'm supposed to do. So then the follow-up question is, well, why aren't you doing it? And I think that's the problem that most of us have to deal with before all this other great advice that we're going to share with you can happen. And so for some folks, even before they get to my office, have socioeconomic barriers. Maybe they don't have health care, or you have a high deductible that prevents you from coming in and being seen. Maybe getting healthy foods are a challenge because healthy food oftentimes costs more than fast foods, quick foods. And so I was so pleased to learn about your food pantry here, that you guys are actually being the hands and feet of Christ to the community to meet that need. But do know that there are lots of opportunities for extended health care through the county health department, through the health exchange, and then even through your local doctor's office. You can oftentimes set up a payment plan if you have sticker shock when you need to come in and be seen. So that aside, most of the time when I have somebody sitting in front of me, it's an inertia issue. We're a home of nerds, and so Newton's first law is an object at rest stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion. And so for a lot of people, making those first steps to being more healthy is an inertia issue. And then another very common barrier that I encounter, and this is, I think, the most challenging one for people to commit to dealing with, are emotional barriers. There's a depression or past traumas that people really haven't worked through in a healthy way to begin to make healthy changes. And fear can play into that too, that, again, fear of the unknown, fear of how do I start, can I do this, I'm going to fail. So those are all kind of some of the very common barriers that I see on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's really good. I know it was for me in living that lifestyle, of course. Melanie, for you, what does it mean really to have an active lifestyle? I think oftentimes we'll see those commercials, like Fitbit commercials, where like those people are super excited and they're running marathons and coming back like from swimming. They're like, look at me, I'm super active, I'm the awesomeness. And that's if that's you, that's great. But I don't think that's the reality for a lot of people. So maybe what are just some ways that we can actually like think through what an active lifestyle looks like?
So being active is obviously different for everyone. And I think it's just being mindful of moving, whether it's that you park further from a grocery store so that you get a few extra steps for the day, or you use the stairs instead of the elevator, or you choose to stand at work instead of sitting. And I think that being active if you are not active right now, I think that it can be something that seems really scary, but I think that we can all take smaller steps to being active every day. And in the grand scheme of life, it all adds up, whether you're taking 5 minutes of your day to go outside for a walk. So I think that active is different for everyone, but I think it's just being mindful of moving and not sitting as much.
Yeah, I know we talked about the fact that it's often a slow fade one way or the other, that it's often the little things that add up to the big things at the end of it all. It's not, I'm going to go run a marathon today, because you probably won't run a marathon tomorrow. You'll wake up unable to walk. So it's like, hey, maybe I'm going to walk around the block today, and I'm going to build myself back up to being able to do that. So that's great. So does being healthy, Dr. Cowart, does being healthy, that means for me that I'm never going to have any other health issues, right? Like if I come and see the doctor, if I go and eat all the right foods, if I do all the things you're going to say I'm supposed to do, then I'm set for life, right?
Of course not. So there's this thing called the Garden of Eden.
I do remember this.
And when Adam and Eve sinned, sin entered the world, and we were blessed or unblessed with broken bodies as a result. So we require a certain amount of upkeep, but there are no promises about even if we do all the right things. But just a reminder of some of the right things that hopefully will be helpful along the way is I am a pro-vaccine person, so get those immunizations. There's a lot of flu out there right now. It's not too late to get that flu shot, but make sure that you're up to date with your other immunizations. Even as adults, there's a few that we should be getting. And the goal is to prevent disease, keep you out of the hospital. Also important to keep up with your healthcare screenings. The number of people that don't get screenings because they are afraid of the test, or worse, afraid of the results. It still alarms me, even though I've been doing this for a couple decades. Get your colon cancer screening, get your mammogram, get your GYN exam done. If we can catch those things early, the treatments are much less toxic and much less invasive than if we're catching things really much later. And then know your family history, because your family history is going to impact some of the decisions that I make in terms of when to start screening you. If you've got a family history of diabetes or heart attacks or certain cancers, we need to know that as your doctor. And then do know that, again, if you tend to be on the overweight side, you're going to be at risk for earlier onset of blood pressure problems and cholesterol problems and diabetes and even certain types of cancers. So it's going to be very important for you if the scale is, giving you a little warning light, to make sure that you're coming in and getting those things monitored. Again, because we want to help you guys be healthy. I mean, we take care of sick people because we have to. I much more prefer to take care of healthy people and keep them healthy.
That's good. Yeah, I know there are two people that nobody in society wants to go and visit, right? The doctor or the dentist. And so I know you don't live in a very fun profession when it comes to that, but it is important for us to be able to do that and take care of ourselves, because if not, we're just going to have to pay for it later, and that's not fun. So Melanie, we're gonna really dig into the awkward conversation now. And Dr. Cowart kind of mentioned it here, but let's kind of dig in for a second. How does weight play into being healthy? Because here's what I think could be heard, that if I'm not skinny, I'm not healthy. And I don't think any of us would say that. I don't think it's a fair assessment. So what does it look like? How do we play weight into health or not?
So I think that we should all believe that being healthy and taking care of our health isn't about our weight. It's not about being skinny. Often it's not about the number that is on the scale. I think weight is one of the things that determines if we are healthy. It's one of the indicators, but it's not the only scoreboard. I think that when we are overweight and we're not at a weight that is good for our bodies, that it does do a number on like our joints, and our hearts have to work harder. We can't breathe as well. I think it does over time. So I use this example, like if you were to hold 2 10-pound dumbbells, initially you're not going to feel the impact, but over a few minutes you start to feel the weight, and it's kind of how it is when we are overweight. Our joints start to feel it. We are at higher risk of diabetes and those things. So I think being able to have this conversation with our church family, I think is important, because you're within a group of people that are here to support you. So when it comes to your weight, I definitely believe that it's not about being skinny, and I think that we have a very skewed view of that, especially in the U.S., where that is supposed to be where we're shooting for, but I think it's different for everyone, and being skinny doesn't mean healthy. You can be bigger and still be able to do things. I think it's about living bigger with where we are and the body that God has given us, because genetics and things play into that too. So yeah. I think it's making small, healthy lifestyle changes, and then I think that weight loss is a byproduct of those choices.
That's good. All right, so Dr. Cowart, what should or shouldn't we eat or drink? I like to eat a lot, as noted from my shirts earlier. I've had to cut Chick-fil-A chicken out of my diet. So what are some things that we should avoid that, I tell you, when I sat with you, my mind was blown. I know Karen Emery is in here and Stephanie are in here. They need to hear this answer. I think Pastor Matt skirted for this one, so he doesn't want to be called out twice. So tell us some things that we should be avoiding, so that at least 2 of our people can hear you very clearly today.
Yes. I will take that and run with it. So diet is a 4-letter word. And dieting is not a means to health. And I hit Pastor Matt pretty hard with his Diet Coke addiction, because diet sodas and anything with those darn artificial sweeteners in it it's not healthy. You're fooling yourself if you think that Diet Coke is a better alternative than a full sugar Coke. Okay, and I'll tell you why. So aspartame and other artificial sweeteners give us that sweet taste in our mouth. And there's a whole chemical process that happens when we consume the aspartame, that our stomach is now waiting for that full feeling that sugar gives us. Well, guess what? When we have an artificial sweetener, that full feeling never hits the belly. And that sends a signal to our brain saying, where is the sugar? And what happens, and they've proved this with studies, you actually consume more calories when you drink diet sodas. And diet sodas actually show worse incomes in diabetics. So, in your small groups and in your community, guess what you're going to be working on? I've asked Pastor Chris to help y'all kick the diet soda. Yeah. But that also goes along with all of the diet fads, the keto, the South Beach, fill in the blank. I want a healthy, active lifestyle. I don't want a quick fix diet Many of you have tried the quick fix diets, the weight comes off, and guess what? It comes back with a vengeance, and then you're more than where you started. So small changes that you can make over time that will lead up to healthy, active lifestyle, the movement, and then what you're putting in your body. The other thing that gets overlooked with a healthy, active lifestyle is sleep. And I forgot to mention this in the first service, but sleep. We are a sleep-deprived society. If we are not getting enough sleep, all of those hormone levels that help balance out our functions, our bodies reset while we sleep. Sleep is important to maintaining a healthy weight. And if you're exercising, you sleep better. Again, if you got some emotional stuff that needs to be dealt with, get it dealt with, because the sleep, we should be getting about 7.5 hours of sleep a night is what the data shows. Most of us are a little bit less than that. Just a reminder, eat your fruits and veggies. When I have preschoolers, eat the rainbow. The minimum is 5 fruits or vegetables a day, upwards of 10. And so if you're reaching for the fruits and vegetables, you won't be reaching for the chips, right? And it's those empty carbs that we want to limit. Healthy proteins, it's the meats, it's the nuts. Those are also good for us. I'm a big fan of food trackers. So if you've never tracked how many calories that you're really eating and you want to be a healthier weight, do a food tracker for a few days. See what your regular food calorie consumption is. For weight loss, you got to be somewhere in the 1,200 to 1,500 calorie a day range. If you go below 1,000, you won't lose weight. Your body thinks that it's starving. So that 1,200 to 1,500 works for most people. And I always say, be honest with a food tracker, because it's not going to judge you, right?
It's the only thing in this world that won't judge you.
Exactly.
You're right,
You're going to judge yourself, but the food tracker does a really nice job of helping you make some goals that Melanie's going to talk about.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned in the first service about the insignificant, or maybe not insignificant, the negative effects of non-fat foods.
Yes, thank you.
It's such a good one. It blew my mind, because it's like, well, of course you shouldn't eat the fat foods, right? But I think laid out a really good explanation.
Yeah, and it's mostly like the dairy stuff. I mean, how many of you have non-fat dairy in your refrigerator? It's like it's hard to find low-fat yogurt. At least I have to go to, a handful of stores. Most stores don't have it. So when you eat a non-fat product, you do not get that full feeling that fat gives you. So I would encourage you all to ditch the non-fat dairy and at least go to a low-fat dairy, 1 or 2% milk, low-fat yogurts, because again, you're going to feel more full when you eat those versus if you're doing the non-fat.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is drink regular Dr. Pepper, not diet Dr. Pepper.
Right.
Get the full-fat food items. All
Yes.
right. So we're eating well. All right.
And lots of water,
Yes.
water, and more water.
I love it. Melanie, what are some steps that we can begin taking right now? What are some ways that we can find success in healthy living?
I love this question. I think that there are so many different things that we can do to make better choices. There are so many possibilities, and I think that you guys know yourselves best. You know what's worked in the past and what hasn't worked, and I think that it takes commitment. So those small things that you decide that you're going to work on, and finding a community that you can be supported in. So obviously I work at Transformations Fitness for Women. It's all women, sorry guys. But we support you, and we have support groups, and I think that if you even just have one person that you're like, hey, I'm going to work on drinking water this week, and then you may actually inspire them too to try to work on those things with you. So some steps that you can take to be living healthier, having 1 less soda a day, so we're keeping the Dr. Pepper, but just having 1 less, because it is about 210 calories when you have 1 soda, so that's 210 less that you can actually put towards things that are going to bring good things to your bodies. As women, I like to think of us as flowers, so we have to give ourselves things that are going to bring us nutrients, vitamins, sunshine, Drinking water makes you to grow beautiful. So that's what I usually use with my clients.
Man, your flowers too.
Yeah.
Nutrients, things like that. We want you to grow beautiful too, yeah. And I'm starting a new gym just for men also. Yeah. We're going to call it that. You can get your hair colored and work out at the same time, just for men.
Yes.
All right, sorry.
Yes. It's the small things that add up over time. So whether it's less carbs, if you know you're going to go out to eat at dinner, don't eat crap during lunch. You know, it's those small things. If you go out to dinner, maybe you share your meal with someone. That's what my husband and I do. And we save money too, so it's like a win-win.
Yeah.
So it's those small things that add up over time. And I think that if you can share those, I shared in the first service that I always have my clients do 10 squats every time they go to the bathroom.
So crazy.
Yes. So it's like a win-win. So you're moving and you're getting exercise, and
I've
then
done
you're just
50
conscious.
squats just today.
Yes, that's
I
great.
get very nervous before I come out here, so
Yeah. So
that's great.
yeah, standing up every hour. There are so many different possibilities. Try one thing, make it a habit, make it something you're like, yes, I got this, and then you can move on to other things.
It's good. Yeah, we started drinking water at mealtime, like at dinners especially, because if you drink it first, then you're not as prone to like, let me get that Dr. Pepper or that other drink as well. You can probably go home and drink it for one. You can drink it a lot less if you just drink it at home. But two, obviously, it shifts your brain a little bit. So that's really good. All right, we're coming to the end. We only got a couple questions left. But Dr. Cowart, as we kind of come to the end, let's build a really good summary statement here. When we're really talking about this, how does holistic health, so we're talking about WHOLISIT, that word, holistic, so spiritual, physical, mental, emotional, relational. Like our bodies are all part of a bigger picture, not just about eating healthy, not just about going to the gym, but it's a full spectrum image. How does holistic health drive that healthy living?
Yeah, so just as each one of us is part of the body of Christ, if I'm not whole, I can't participate fully in the body of Christ to do the work that I've been called to do. So really, when I think about the whole person, there's really a spiritual component. When I break it down, if your spiritual self isn't right, are you having your regular prayer times? Are you reading the Bible? Are you in community? Are you coming to service and being with the body of Christ on a regular basis? Nothing else is going to fall into place. And so we want that spiritual foundation. The next step is really your emotional health. Again, because of those barriers that I spoke about earlier, you need to be spiritually well so you can tackle the emotional stuff, because oftentimes there's a spiritual component to our emotional stuff. Not always, but oftentimes. And then once you have that in check, then the physical stuff, then you've got the energy and you're in the right mindset to take care of this wonderful body that God has given you. And so it all kind of feeds back. And then for some people, the physical side, like working out, helps them with the emotional stuff. So it all plays in together, and each one of those components needs to be dealt with and cared for and nurtured in its own unique way, because they all play together.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question we want to wrap up with. I think one of the things that I know to be true, at least in my life, is that we have to set goals appropriately. If I set a goal to do an Ironman, and I decided that today I'm going to go out, I'm going to swim 2.5 miles and bike 112 and run 26.2, I'm going to probably end up in a hospital, all right? So how do we set goals in such a way that we can achieve them and actually begin to see what our 2020 goals are for ourselves come to fruition?
So when it comes to goal setting, I always recommend writing down your goals, because if you have it written down, at least you know where you're going and what you're shooting for, and scheduling them. So, at my gym we have classes, which women love to come together because they're with other people and they're being encouraged that way. But this may be that you're trying to walk 3 times a week. So can you schedule whether you're going to walk with someone, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday, before dinner, I'm going to go for a walk, whether it's 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. So can you schedule it? If you're going to eat vegetables, can you schedule what meals you're going to have the vegetables at? So writing it down. You definitely want to start small with attainable ones, because if you're like, I'm going to do this big goal, you have to set those small goals so that you feel that you've accomplished something, because our bodies are only ours to take care of. No one else is going to take care of our bodies for us. So it's starting with those small goals, whether it's drinking more water. I like to pair it with meals. Make sure you drink a whole glass of water with every meal you eat. And then you want to find those victories and wins and have a support group around you that you can celebrate with. Something is always better than nothing. So if you can't work out for an hour, 5 or 10 minutes is better than nothing.
Yeah.
So
That's really good. I know Dustin and I set a goal this year. He told me I wasn't supposed to say this because now he has to do it. But that's okay. So Dustin and I set a goal at the beginning of 2020 to stop eating fast food as much. And the way we did that was that, hey, we're only going to eat fast food. Fast food, we defined it as something with a drive-through. So anything you can drive through and get the food instead. We're only allowed one fast food meal per week. That's it. So, I heard the whistles. Yeah, I know. It's really easy in our job to go to Chick-fil-A or to go somewhere and just grab it and come back and keep going. So our commitment to each other is each week we will only eat out at a fast food restaurant one time per week. If we get to December and we have been successful, then we will buy big steak dinners and celebrate. If I fail or Dustin fails, then we have to buy the other one's dinner instead. So it's a really fun, each week, accountability, small thing that helps us kind of keep in check what we're eating. I think of goal setting, when we were talking about it, a lot like Financial Peace University. If you've ever done Dave Ramsey's thing, he says, like, don't go, I'm going to be debt-free and pay off my biggest one first. It's like, no, like, pay off the smallest one, because then you got a victory, and then you keep going, and you keep going, and you keep going until you win. So thank you, Melanie and Dr. Coward. Thank you both for being here. Can we give some love for them?
good job.
As we wrap up this morning, I want to give us a couple of really tangible steps forward. We always kind of end with this, what now, God? What do we do with all of the content? Hopefully you're able to write down a bunch of things. If not, go back, watch it on YouTube or Facebook later. I think it's a really helpful time this morning. I want to give you 3 things this morning that are really tangible steps forward. One, guard your motives. It can be really easy for us to have unhealthy motives about why we're doing what we're doing. I want to get healthy because I want to look better for my boo. Like, that's fine, but make sure at the end of the day, like, you're checking your motives at the door to make sure that your heart is right when you're doing that. That you're losing weight, or you're doing whatever goal. I want to be active. I want to walk around the block 3 times this week. That your goal in that is to honor God first and foremost. Your heart has to be right. As Dr. Coward said, the spiritual plays so much into all of the other categories. So guard your motives. Secondly, find your community. Find the community of people that you can be around, whether that's 2 or 3 people you're sitting around, whether that's your life group. If you're not in a life group, join a life group. If you go and like, hey, I'm going to have a gym, I'm going to have a life group at the gym, like, great, like, go and do that. Whatever it is, find a community to be around you. Because if you don't have community, it'll be really hard to do life alone. Lastly, I would say that you need to daily refresh your commitment. One of the greatest books I have read is a book by John Maxwell. It's called Failing Forward. If you've never read it, buy it today and read it. In that book, Maxwell says some of the greatest men and women who lead the companies today, the reason why they are there is because they failed. But they didn't fail and give up. They failed and moved forward. They saw failure as a growth rather than failure as a stopping point. And so for us, don't think, well, I only want to drink 4 sodas today, but I drank 5. Guess I'll just drink all the soda I want from here on out. No. Tomorrow I'll be like, 4 is it. I'm only going to keep 4 in my house. Like, I'm going to make it so difficult to fail at this goal. Like, take steps to succeed, and every day wake up and say, today is going to be a day of victory, not a day of defeat. Wake up with that mindset. Daily refresh. Let me read you a passage to close out our time. In Galatians chapter 6 and verse 9, it says this: so let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap the harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't throw your arms in the air and say it's not worth it. Instead, commit to living a life that's honoring and glorifying to God. Will you pray with me? God, thank you so much for the opportunity that we've had to learn, to grow, to be challenged this morning. I pray, God, that we walk out of this room with some really tangible and applicable next steps that we can apply to our lives. God, we know that you are good and a holy God. That you love us and you love our bodies. You love who we are. You love all the different shapes and sizes that you've created. And so, God, I pray that you would help us to view our bodies in view of your eyes. God, that you love us, that you treasure us, that you are with us. God, may we see that as our primary focus and not all the negatives that we so quickly run to. And we wake up every morning and say that I am a child of God, born in the likeness of him, first and foremost. We love you. We thank you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Well, we are so thankful for the truth that was shared in this message today. Please know that we as a staff and as a church are praying that what you have learned today, the truths that God has put deep down into your heart, will manifest themselves and grow themselves into something amazing. And as always, you can experience that with other believers, other people who are walking this walk of faith at ACC on a Sunday morning at 8:30, 10 a.m., or 11:30 a.m. As a reminder, please remember, you belong at ACC.